Well, hi friends, and welcome to a new series called Transcending Materialism and Worry. And this is the next topic that Jesus addresses in his Sermon on the Mount. And today in particular, we're talking about the elusiveness of materialism. So materialism, we might say, is the trend to value material things, and so it can lead to things like consumerism as well and other isms. But there's an ism that's kind of counter to that that's also gaining some popularity in our culture today, and it's called minimalism. And I like to think of myself as an aspiring minimalist, but I'm not really that aspirational with it. I just kind of like some elements of it, right? I like minimalist architecture and design. It's one of the things I enjoy about this new building that we get to worship in and gather in, is the clean lines and it's just a beautiful and simple space. And can be really great beauty in simplicity. And I also just like the idea of simplicity. And that's one of the reasons why most days, if you see me, I'm wearing something like this with just a navy shirt or a black shirt. And that's pretty much my wardrobe most of the time, a pair of jeans and a shirt like this one. But, so in theory, I like minimalism, but in practicality, maybe not so much, because I still find myself liking to have things and buy things and not get rid of things that have some kind of sentimental value to me, or I might use it again someday or whatever. And maybe you run into a similar thing when you watch a documentary on minimalism, or you see pictures of people's homes on Instagram that are just they look so nice, and it's like, if I could just get rid of some stuff, then maybe I could really enjoy such a space as that, or such a life as that. Well, Jesus wants to talk about materialism, but he's not really introducing minimalism as a trendy thing for you to get on board with. He's just saying, be careful what you treasure. In fact, that's our bottom line, our crux today, is that where your treasure is, there your heart is. And this idea that if we treasure things that are of lasting and enduring value, then there our heart will be. But if we treasure things that are not lasting or enduring, just material things that are going to go the way of all material things in this world, then there our heart will be also. It's a sobering thought, a sobering reality, and it's not something that's brand new to Jesus, though he certainly emphasized it and was an excellent teacher about it. But we actually see this even earlier in our scriptures, in Psalm 49, for instance. I love how this psalm starts. I don't know if you may have caught on to this if you've already read it today, but listen to this, all you people. Pay attention, everyone in the world. Listen, whether you're high or low, rich or poor, listen. So it's interesting how this danger of materialism is really a danger no matter whether you're rich or poor, isn't it? There's something about material things that can suck us all in and tempt us to treasure things and place our heart in things that simply can't last. And this chapter, this psalm, is such a brutal takedown of materialism, isn't it? I mean, it just minces no words about how worthless it is to value and make much of things that simply can't last and that you can't take with you past this life. For instance, in verse 16 and 17, it's like, don't worry about it when you see people getting rich and amassing wealth, and their homes get ever more splendid. For when they die, they'll take nothing with them. Their wealth will not follow them into the grave. There's this idea also in this of, he says, as for me, God will redeem my life. He will snatch me from the power of the grave. And it's like there's this hope then of, man, if we learn to treasure eternal things that last, then we have this eternal and lasting hope that comes along with that. It reminds me of something Jesus said somewhere else where he talked about, like, what good is it if you gain the whole world but forfeit your soul? It's a message that we need to hear. That's why Jesus brings it up at multiple points. And that's why we as a church family need to take a long, hard look sometimes at our materialism, because we certainly live in a material world, don't we? And we certainly are bombarded in our culture in particular, more than any other society perhaps ever on the face of the planet, with material things and advertising and things that are just begging us to buy. And the advertisements are always telling you something that you need that you don't have, right? Or something that will make your life better, or something that you deserve this, or you deserve a better that, And my goodness, when you're bombarded with that day in and day out, it is staggering the impact that can have on our soul, and how tempting it can become to drift into this pattern of treasuring things that simply have no lasting value. And so I want you to kick around in your groups today some ways to combat this. And maybe you can get really practical. I'll give you a couple of examples that I thought of just to get your brains started turning. So I heard of a guy who practices Sabbath, and on the Sabbath every week, he, I think, practices it on Saturday, but whatever your day would be, he says, I don't buy anything on Sabbath. It's a day to stop consuming, right, in that sense. I'm not going to go out and buy things on my Sabbath. So maybe that's something you consider as a day of the week where you don't buy things. Or maybe it's, hey, this month out of every year, we're really going to tighten the buckle and not buy anything that's not an absolute necessity. Building in some kind of rhythm where you say hey, for a season, we're going to abstain from consuming material things. And so remind our heart of what we treasure the most. Another suggestion would be to do everything you can to refuse commercials. So this might mean that, you have a streaming service where you can skip commercials, or you have a DVR where you can pause at the end of a program and then fast forward through the commercials. Or it might be that you can mute the commercials at least. It might be that you need to, go ahead and bite the bullet and pay for that subscription to remove the ads on things. It's just ridiculous how many advertisements the average person will see and hear in their lifetime. The numbers are staggering. And you have to know that input, output, right? That there's this sense that if we're going to be inputting advertising constantly that's telling us, buy and spend and buy these material things, that we're going to be materialistic in our mindset as well, because that's what we've put in. And so guard against that by cutting out commercials. And doubtless you'll think of other ideas as a group of ways that you can combat materialism and make sure that we're treasuring and putting our heart in the things that matter the most.